at 3's. We are joined by John from 3's Brewing. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You can find 3's on Instagram, 3 spelled out, the number 3S Brewing on Instagram, and then on Twitter, same thing, 3, the number 3S Brew on Twitter. Their 4th anniversary is February 1st, which will be 1 week from the airing of this episode once we get it up later. But we're going to start more at the beginning. So, John, 3's, a lot of times when we go to breweries, it's like, oh, it's the name of the town, or it's something pretty obvious. We haven't been able to figure out really where 3's came from. So can you explain what's behind the name? One of the more interesting ones we've seen.
Yeah, so actually the building that we're in right now used to be addressed 333 Washington Street for the prior businesses. Once opened as a brewery, the front door was put out on 13th Street here. So the address had to change. So the original owners decided to use a little bit of the building history when naming the business and named it after that original address.
But it's not even 333 anymore now.
It's not anymore. The building was.
Got it. Okay, that's pretty interesting.
It's like keep a little history for the building we're in.
There you go.
So as far as the history of the brewery, what would you say is either like, the flagship beer of 3's, or like what's the first one that when they started the idea that they were like, oh man, like this is actually good. We have a hit here. We can work with this.
So last year at the 2019 Atlantic City Beer and Musical Festival, we entered our Back to Reality IPA into the Hazy New England IPA competition, and we came in first place.
Uh-oh.
So
that's like our number one category.
Yeah, so taking a win in that category is kind of a big deal. So we made the decision going back in November to make the Back to Reality our first flagship beer IPA. Prior to that, we just were extraordinarily a rotational brewery. It was what's new, what's different. We probably had almost, like 25 different IPAs we were rotating monthly.
Wow.
And yeah. And we decided, you know what, let's get this one brand always available, and we kind of cut back on some of the ones that kind of moved a little slower or people weren't as excited over. And everybody seems to be loving the Back to Reality IPA.
All right, we have a lot of things we can take from that. One, is that the one that has the Back to the Future artwork?
So that's one of two, technically. So Back to Reality and Escape from Reality are the single and double versions of the same of a similar beer.
Okay.
They both have the DeLorean on the can artwork. The Back to Reality has the front, and the Escape from Reality has the back. And it's funny, we actually both brewed and canned the Escape from Reality before we made Back to Reality. And they actually had plans to can the Escape from Reality before Back to Reality even won the award. So once it won the award, we're like, well, now we have to make the single version more often.
Well, I mean, you have to escape reality before you can go back. You
Exactly.
can't go back until
Makes
you
sense.
escape. So
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, friend of the podcast, Paul Brown, who did our website and a lot of our social, I saw the can art from him yesterday because he's the biggest Back to the Future fan in the world, and also has worked AC Beer Fest for a lot of the past years, and he was like, this is the greatest canned beer art I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, conveniently we're going to be there tomorrow, so definitely wanted to talk about that. Awesome. Hazy New England style IPAs, I think between the three of us is probably the most consensus agreed upon beer between us, and usually is up there for us. So big fans of that. I'm definitely going to have to grab some of that before we leave.
Oh, I was going to agree. I need to get a 4-pack of that before we walk out of this place.
Always available.
Leaning into that, so you mentioned AC Beer Fest, which we're kind of still. I still don't know if we have the word that we're able to officially announce that we're there, but we're there and we've kind of been telling people.
I think you just did.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing it on a lot of things, but
officially,
we've only been putting it in deep into content that people would really have to go find. So this is going to be our first year there as a podcast, but me and Corey here have, I think this is our 6th year that we were going. We had tickets before we even, found out that we would actually be able to podcast from there. What is your reaction? You guys are actually not too far from AC. I guess probably about 25 minutes or so.
Depends on traffic and if which way you go.
Sure.
Expressway or White Horse Pike.
So AC Beer Fest specifically, but I was going to ask about beer fests in general, but especially AC Beer Fest for you guys. Do you find that going to something like that with your brand that you get a lot of positive feedback, and also do you see it translate into the tap room here, like people coming in and being like, yeah, like went to AC Beer Fest and you guys were pouring this, it really stood out, had to come back again.
All the time. I can't tell you how many times I see people come in with those little handbooks, the passports,
the passport,
and they're looking for their stamps. People say, "Hey, I had your beer at what was such and such festival, and I had to come, and I loved it so much, I had to come." Whether we're also distribute into Eastern Pennsylvania, Philadelphia market, and we get people coming in from Philadelphia all the time and say, "Hey, I had your beer at such and such bar, and I loved it, and I wanted to see what else you have," and then they leave here, loving it again and wanting to come back. So the festivals certainly help our brand and our tap room grow.
That's really awesome because I've always wondered, do they really help, promotion, getting people in through the door? Because sometimes you can think, well, it's just a reason for people to show up to drink a whole bunch of beers and get wasted. And, are they going to remember that experience, especially when they're tasting 10, 20 different beers?
Yeah.
But to hear that actually translating to success, that's really awesome.
Yeah, it depends on the festival. Like some festivals are just run a lot better than others. I've personally noticed that any festival put on by Good Time Tricycle, which are the guys who put on Atlantic City Beer Festival,
Yep.
they're always the best, most well-run festivals. And that's the ones, and they're primarily South Jersey, a lot of South Jersey festivals. You take an AC Beer Fest, the Witchcraft Festival, that's in October. That one was really big as well.
Yeah, they do the Seafood Fest as
They
well,
do
which
the
is a
Seafood
big hit.
Festival, yeah. So we notice a lot of people come from those festivals after them. So I would say the better the festivals run, the more we'll see people come to our facility afterwards.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you guys were like more of a rotational type of brewer. You mentioned like 25 or so IPAs often rotating.
That's just IPAs.
Right. Would you say based on that number that like an IPA kind of style would have been like the most like brewed style you guys had? Like you do have a good variety here.
100%. So when we came in here, we're actually the second owners, and this March will be our third year running 3's. We came in here and they were, I think, my first 2 months, all we brewed was IPAs. I didn't brew a thing until we finally brewed our Blueberry Saison, was the first non-IPA I brewed working here. That's where the craft market is. It has been. And we kind of, when we signed on with our distributor Hammonton, that was like almost all they wanted. You can get a couple seasonal beers, Saison summer, stouts and porters in the fall, but it was primarily IPAs. And I think as we grow as a brewery, as the market morphs and changes, we're able to kind of build off of that. You've got your brand, the Bacteriality will always be there, and you hit your IPA numbers with that, and you're able to mix in a little bit more variety, which I personally love.
Yeah, we're definitely about the variety, so that's awesome to hear. So speaking of variety, we are in Hammonton. It's the blueberry capital of the world.
It is.
You mentioned a Saison already. I'm currently drinking the Break the Fast, which is a blueberry pancake-inspired porter.
Yep.
So being in this area, having some kind of access to that, do you find yourself doing a lot of blueberry-inspired styles as a result?
So the Blueberry Saison is like our trademark summer seasonal. We make a lot of that throughout the summer, especially this summer, now that we're kind of in the flagship style instead of just making whatever hasn't been made in a while. We're going to be cranking out Blueberry Saison almost as much as Bacteriality this summer, which sucks for me because I'm the guy who has to puree and cook all the blueberries. Oh, wow. And that's not a fun process.
I don't imagine so.
And
you don't have to mash them with your feet, right? Like
no,
in barrels and stuff?
Nobody would drink the beer if I had to
I think
do that.
that's wine, right?
I've only seen that in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
That's where I get most of my information from. So
That's a reliable source. They're always right.
They always did it first.
They always
predict
did it
everything.
first.
They do.
Simpsons did it.
Now, I do have to ask, being the blueberry capital of the world, like, does that, kind of moniker, does it ever get, like, annoying or just old? You're like, oh, I got to brew another batch of blueberries. Why can't this town do something else? Or is that something that, like, people from around here are actually proud of?
People from here are actually very proud of the blueberry heritage, but I don't really feel that our hand is forced to make that too much. I think, you do want to have a blueberry beer any chance you can. Obviously, it's got to be seasoned right, which is why we have the blueberry pancake porter for the winter time. Nice thick porter to warm people up. And then we have the easy drinking summer blueberry saison for the summer. We've done a couple of other like one-off varieties. I think we did a blueberry cobbler last summer, which is like graham crackers and blueberries in a blonde ale. We've done a couple of others, but we really can do whatever we want fruit-wise. It's not like, oh, why did you make something without blueberry? We also have a blackberry saison, hibiscus saison. So we can kind of do whatever, but like you being from in Hammonton, you kind of do have to be like, all right, well, we have to be conscious. We got to make something with a blueberry. And we love, people love our blueberry saison. So like that's like the staple of the blueberry beers for us.
I mean, it's got to be convenient to have a staple of your community that you can actually implement in what you do.
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
Growing up in like Runnymede, where it's like, hey, we have a giant stretch of the Black Horse Pike that no businesses ever last. It's like, well, what are you going to do with that? That was pretty much to claim the fame. So it's good there's something you can use. I don't see how that would really be a problem.
Not at all. Just making those blueberries.
So we mentioned your 4-year anniversary is coming up in a week on February 1st. Before we actually touch on that, I wanted to ask, so we've only been doing this for just over a year, the podcast specifically, but we've been, around craft beer for a while now. A lot of the places that we've visited so far in our time doing this are in their first year. They're about to celebrate a 1-year anniversary, a 2-year anniversary. So coming up on 4. Now, I know you had mentioned that, you guys are coming up on your 3rd year of owning it. But either way, kind of being more veteran than a lot of the people that we speak to, what are some of the ways that you guys, kind of like hang in, compete, like stay fresh in a market where so many breweries are sprouting up, and a lot of times just being new can generate hype, can get people in the door, but then you have to sustain. So now not only do you guys have to sustain, you have to compete against all of them popping up.
I think there's probably about 12 answers I can give you right here. The first I'm going to say is when you have that staple flagship beer, people recognize that they know it, and using the Back to the Future reference is something that sticks with people's mind. Like, oh, Back to the Future beer. So I think that is a way to kind of keep yourself above, is having a good beer, an award-winning beer that is easily recognizable. On top of that, my brother is a mad scientist, and if there's a stupid, crazy idea, he's very willing to find a way to make it work. Like today, we're tapping Cop Juice, which is a jelly donut, coffee porter, which you've got the sign right there.
And it's delicious.
Who the heck makes a jelly donut beer? We do. It's just having the mindset of what's weird, how can we make it work? Not that's stupid. It's how do we make that work? Another awesome thing that we have that not a lot of the newer guys who are starting smaller, is we have a 1-barrel pilot system, which really allows us to get crafty, get creative, and do some wild and out there things. We also recently got a couple of corny kegs, which is like a 5-gallon keg that you could put a cylinder in. That's how we made the Cop Juice. You just rack a beer into it, put whatever kind of ingredients you want to age it on. And it's just a 5-gallon batch. You could really experiment on that.
All right, so you mentioned your brother, mad scientist.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the craziest thing he's tried that didn't work, and what's the craziest one he's tried that did?
Honestly, the only true miss that comes to mind is we have a line of experimental IPAs we call Evolution. And the last one we did, I think, was Evolution 11. He tried to do a cherry vanilla IPA. And at first, it just didn't, we weren't overly happy with it. But a lot of the times what we do when we're not happy with something is we leave it in the cooler for a while. And then we try it. And we tried it a week or two ago, and it was way the hell better than the first time. I think we also did that with a brown ale. We just weren't happy with it. Just kind of left it in the back, and all of a sudden, holy crap, it's really good. And a mint, we did actually a mint stout that the same thing. It was aged on Andy's candies, and it tastes like toothpaste. I might as well have been drinking Crest. So we threw it in the back for 3 months, pulled it out. It kind of tastes like candy canes now. Put it in the back for another 2 months, pulled it out. It was Andy's candies. Everything came through, and it's just amazing how, you know what? I'm not sure how I feel about this. Let me age it, and then you find the right time to serve it. That's kind of cool. As far as certain hits, we did a boysenberry cobbler called The Boys Are Back. And that was, I think when we did our cobbler series, we couldn't keep them on tap long enough. Just people were drinking them up. I mean, we did a strawberry rhubarb that flew. We did a peach that flew. The blueberry, as mentioned earlier, those just kind of, you can't keep them in stock. And actually, if you want to talk real mad scientists, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sterling Tavern, but we did a beer dinner with them, and there's some mad scientists in the kitchen, and they asked us to do some mad scientist work on the beer side to pair. We made a Oreo Golden Stout, a pizza saison.
Oh shit!
Oh my god.
A peach Grotzer, which is a smoked wheat beer, which is a creation of my own, and
You said wheat, right?
wheat,
Okay.
a smoked wheat beer, which it's like a beer with like bacon flavor.
Either way
but
would
aged
pique
on
my
peach.
interest. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure we were
Yeah.
on the same page
Yes,
here.
yes. So I mean, the ideas are endless.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're working on some things on our end, content creation wise, with beer pairing and food and things like that. So that's awesome to hear that you guys were able to do something
Yeah,
cool
we're,
like that. That
we're
sounds
planning
awesome.
another one with those guys, and I think a couple other breweries are going to join.
Where are
us
they?
this
Where are
time.
they located?
Sterling. If I had my phone on me, I could look it up. I don't honestly know what town it is. I know it's much more north,
Okay.
but they made a crazy menu. I unfortunately didn't make it to that event, but I was told the stories of how mad sciencey there.
Pizza saison.
Yeah. It's just interesting. You have two beers that are the names have to do with Back to the Future, and you describe yourself a mad scientist. So you
That
guys
was
must really
no pun intended.
The lore translates to reality.
Yeah.
And then reality is also put in the name of the beer. So
According to the Google, Sterling Tavern is in Morristown, New Jersey.
okay.
Okay.
But
Okay.
like, I believe the North Morris.
Yeah,
town.
not
Yeah.
Morris.
Yes,
Morris. Yep.
yes, that's the one it is.
I figured. So, okay. Leading up now, February 1st, 1 week, the 4-year anniversary. What can you tell us about what people can expect if they're able to come through there? What do you guys have planned for that?
So for the 4-year anniversary, we expand our hours. We open at 12. We close at 10, which is usually 1 to 9. The first 3.5 hours is 14 beers on tap. We're going to have our anniversary IPA. Here's the scoop, and I'm going to tell you. The second part's just the quote for the name of the beer. It's not actually part of the name. Which is going to be a milkshake double IPA with pink guava and red currant. Ooh. Trying some different fruits. You can't use the same stuff everybody else uses. We're going to have, I'm not entirely sure the exact first 14 beers that are going to be on tap besides that, but I know that won't be on tap. At 3:30, we're doing timed release for all of our employee brewed beers. So one of our traditions for our anniversary party is to have all of our beer tenders and production staff brew their own anniversary beer. And we try to have fun with it and make like a little in-house competition to see who can get the best rating. I think what we're doing is we're bringing in like a 16-ounce can from any other brewery, and we're just going to make a pot, and whoever gets the highest untapped rating is going to take home the pot.
Nice.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's
Yeah,
fun.
that's a
I
great
think
idea.
it's really fun, and we've got some really cool ideas. Everybody's really came up with some awesome stuff and some very different out there stuff, especially for us.
It's just funny with my day job, they talk about employee engagement, and people are like, "Yeah, okay," but when you work at a brewery, that's truly the spirit of employee engagement and getting everyone involved. Like that's really awesome.
It's cool to have got our beer tenders this is all their second job. We're only open 4 days a week, so for them to either take a day off or find a time around their work schedule to come in and actually be a part of a pilot brew day, which is not something they get to do every day. So it's fun for them. They're technically working, but it's not their usual job, and they get to help out. They all had a blast. They worked with my brother and our brewer to come up with recipes. Basically just their idea, and then Mike and our brewer John both collaborated to make recipes.
Awesome, man. Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
So again, that's February 1st. That's next Saturday. Like John said, they're open 12 to 10. A double milkshake IPA coming on, the anniversary ale, and a whole lot more coming around 3:30. So
3:33, man.
come hang out. We're here hanging out now. We're gonna drink a little beer and get on with the pod. John, thank you very much.
No problem.
For
Thank
coming
you for
on.
having me, guys.
Thank you for having us, and